Welcome, travelers, to my realm of nightmares. Allow me to be your personal assistant. Come in, take a seat, get comfortable. For when you step into my realm, there's no stepping out.
Hello, travelers. PA Nightmares here. I've noticed that over 30% of my viewers are not subscribed to the channel. So, if you're a new or a returning viewer and you haven't subscribed to the channel, please consider hitting that subscribe button. And if you like what I do, liking the video and commenting as well, as it really helps push this video into the algorithm and it really does help the channel grow. Well, I've taken enough of your time. On to the main event.
Danny, I need to tell you something.
Brian sounded panicked, speaking frantically before the phone was at my ear.
Do you hear them?
He said after a short pause. I listened, but I couldn't bring myself to speak. I was frozen. The bells clanged and chimed their song far away in the distance, but the sound reverberated around my head. It made me feel faint and dizzy.
Danny, are you there?
It's the bells, I said at last, finally able to push the words from my mouth. I hear them, Brian.
I need to tell you something. Something Sean told me. I didn't believe him at first. That's why I stormed off. I thought he was just being a...
I know, I interrupted. He told me to. I don't want to believe it either, but that's where we always thought he ended up. You didn't tell Sean about what happened to us in there, did you? I asked. Brian scoffed.
Of course I didn't. I haven't told anyone.
He sounded annoyed at me for questioning his loyalty. Okay, I didn't think you did. I just wanted to be sure. I dropped the phone silently from my ear. The bell stopped. What do we do? Do we go back? I mean, if he's in there, then we really should go back and see if we can find him. I can't live with the guilt anymore, Brian. We know he was trapped in there, and we never went back. Brian hit back, sounding pissed off before I could say anything else.
People searched the bell tower, Danny. Liam wasn't there. There's nothing for us to feel guilty about. He ran away.
I stood at my bedroom window, pondering his words for a minute. I still felt guilty, even if he didn't. Sure, we were just kids, and sure, we probably would have been killed if we went back that night, but at the end of the day, Liam was gone, and I really felt like that was our burden to carry. We were all supposed to make it together, and one of us got left behind.
Danny.
I heard Brian from the other end of the line after a long silence. Brian, look, before you say anything else, I think we need to go back. What if somehow Liam is still in there? What if there is any way possible we can get him back? We're not kids anymore. If there's even the slightest chance we can get our friend back home, I think we should take it. I heard Brian breathing heavily as I spoke.
Danny, that place fucked us up. Maybe not you, since you're so desperate to go back. But that night has ruined my fucking life.
Brian was sobbing and sniffling as he spoke. We owe it to him, Brian. We always said we would stick together no matter what. We need to get him back. I wasn't taking no for an answer.
Fuck's sake. I suppose you're right, Danny. I don't know.
He paused for a few moments and then continued.
Meet us tomorrow at 12. If we're going, we're taking the guys with us. And we're going during the day. Meet us at the park near the abandoned houses.
No problem. I'll be there, I replied. Brian hung up. I lay back down in bed. Images of that night littered my thoughts. I struggled to get back to sleep. I felt dazed and horrible the next morning, like I was hungover somehow. I got myself ready and sat thinking of what I should bring with me. I took a rucksack and put some things in it. A few large kitchen knives, a hammer, a big torch with extra batteries, and I took a lighter with a can of hairspray. I remember the paper on fire being a relatively effective tool. I felt like a makeshift flamethrower was somewhat upping her game. I met Brian, who was already with Sean and Ash. They were sitting on a small grassy patch next to the road. We were just waiting on Danny with the car. With all the pleasantries out of the way, we had to get down to it and tell everyone about the bell tower. Dennis arrived shortly after I did, and I let Brian take the lead on the story. I could see in everyone's faces that they thought we were full of shit. I sat thinking to myself, just wait until you're inside. Sean laughed, therefore Ash and Dennis copied him, but I really feel like they had to force their laughter. I think there was at least some doubt woven into their minds, which was a good thing. We were all going in, and we all had to be prepared to expect the worst. We got to the car and made the short trek through the woods. I saw the looming bell tower come into view through the trees. I shuddered. Sean and Ash were messing around and laughing at something, but I couldn't focus. I was already on edge. My mind was already in that tower. As we approached the fence, Brian pulled out a pair of bolt cutters. "Hey, good thinking," I said, patting him on the back. Within a minute or so, he had cut a long slit in the fence, more than enough to part the fence and easily climb through. And just like that, we were back. Looking up at the arches like we did when we were kids and had no idea what we were getting into. I felt like I was 13 again. I felt scared, but I also felt determined to prove myself, determined to get my friend back and not let this place haunt my dreams anymore. Before I could say anything, Sean was putting his boot into the wooden door. It began to splinter and crack, and eventually burst open.
Simple as that.
He chuckled and walked inside without hesitation. I felt like I could actually see the stale air rushing out from the tower, as the sulfuric smell that was all too familiar met my nose and took me right back to 5 years ago. I looked at Brian. He didn't seem too sure about going in. We let Dennis and Ash head in first. Not wanting to let anyone out of my sight, I quickly hurried in behind them, and Brian followed suit. Dennis cautiously shuffled along the floor that was strewn with rubble and wood, dead birds, and a mutilated fox heaped in the corner, attracting hundreds of flies. "It smells that fucking asshole in here," Ash piped up.
If that smell comes from your asshole, man, I would go see a doctor ASAP.
Sean fired back. They all laughed, all but myself and Brian, who just stood looking up the center at the stairs and landing that had snaked all the way up. Dennis was already climbing the first set of stairs.
Wait.
Brian called to him.
We all go together. Nobody splits up.
Dennis rolled his eyes. Right. Well, hurry up then. I want to get home for dinner. I shook my head. These guys have no clue what could be waiting up those stairs. We all milled around before heading in a single file line to the stairs. As it was already midday, it wasn't too dark. Light spilled in through the doorway, the few windows that weren't boarded up, and through the cracks in the wood of those that were boarded up. Dennis was already halfway up waiting, so we began walking up as we caught up to him. One thing I didn't even think about was bringing a ladder to reach the second floor. I would have kicked myself for being such an idiot. I would have. If Liam's ladder wasn't already set up perfectly right at the stairs. Brian and I looked at each other. Then he stepped to go forward. I put my hand on his chest. "Wait," I said. The ladder being there made me feel uneasy. "Why? Why is it even here?" I asked.
Maybe Liam's dad set it up when they were looking for him.
Brian suggested. And his dad, or better yet, his uncle, never thought to question why his ladder was here? I looked up and down.
What's the holdup? Why are you two freaking out about a fucking ladder?
Sean spoke loudly, shaking his head.
We're just wondering why it's there, or how it got there.
Brian sounded annoyed. I was annoyed too.
Who cares why it's there?
He turned and gestured to the ladder.
It's there, so we should use it.
Sean then turned back to us.
Oh, or maybe it's there because William has been using it to get up and down the stairs. You ever think of that?
"It's Liam, you fuck." I attempted to chastise Sean, but he had already turned around and started climbing the ladder. I looked at Brian and shook my head. "We never should have brought him," I said as I walked away. Sean had reached the top of the ladder and started climbing onto the remaining portion of the stairs. Before he was even off the ladder, Dennis had begun climbing. I stood next to Ash. "What's the deal with the ladder then? I'm confused," he asked in a soft voice. "It's just another part of the story," I told him. "It's Liam's uncle's ladder, but when they searched, they said they found nothing noteworthy. Then we get here, and it's set up nicely at the stairs waiting for us. It just gives me a bad feeling." "I can see why," he said. He patted me on the back and nodded his head towards the ladder. "You go on, Danny. I'll get Brian." Ash turned and went to fetch Brian, who looked upset and was standing stationary a few feet away. I stood at the bottom of the ladder, waiting for them to come over. Then, one by one, we climbed up and onto the crumbling stairs. As we ascended the old stones, I could literally feel the air getting thicker. The smell of rot and damp fouled my nose. Sean and Dennis led the way. They were up front joking about stuff and laughing like little girls. I couldn't really hear what they were saying. Suddenly, Sean blurted out,
William, are you up here? Come out, wherever you are.
"How difficult it is to remember one simple name." I was beginning to think he was calling Liam by William deliberately, out of pure disrespect.
It's Liam.
Brian corrected him.
Oh, sorry.
Sean jested. Dennis snickered at his sarcasm.
Liam!
Sean called out again.
Where are you, Liam?
He was elongating his name, acting stupid, like it was funny. As we approached the second floor landing, I could hear something. It sounded faint, as if it were in the distance. It was humming, like someone was humming a tune. The tune was vaguely familiar. Nobody seemed to notice. Everybody continued as if nothing was out of the ordinary. We made our way into the middle of the landing. I spent a few minutes looking at the door where I first heard the whisper that 5 years ago it was still shut. Dennis kicked the door opposite and it swung open. The smell of death rushed out to greet us, and we slowly entered. I remembered this room. The same pile of dead birds lay in the corner, now nothing more than a pile of bones and molted black feathers. A creaking sound from outside grabbed my attention. I turned, but again, nobody seemed fazed. The humming started again. What was that tune? I thought as I racked my brain. Everyone was talking over each other, and I struggled to get a word in. All the while, the humming was getting noticeably louder. Does nobody else hear that? Can everybody shut up for a second and listen? They all stopped. The humming continued. I could see eyes widening as we all quietly counted in our heads and confirmed to ourselves that all 5 of us were in the room, and there was music coming from somewhere else.
What is it? I've heard that before, somewhere.
Brian said, keeping his voice low. The humming grew a little louder once more. We stood absolutely frozen still, and we listened. The humming appeared to sound like it was echoing down a long corridor from another room, growing very gradually louder. Every one of us were dead silent, too frightened to move. The humming continued. After about 10 or 20 seconds, it broke into a soft singing voice. "What do you see when you turn out the lights? I can't tell you, but I know it's mine," the voice sang. My jaw dropped almost to the floor as it turned to Brian. He was the same. His mouth hung open, and his white eyes began to well up. "It's not," I began and shook my head. Brian nodded. "Oh, I get by with a little help from my friends. Get high with a little help from my friends. Oh, I'm gonna try with a little help from my friends." The voice, it felt almost forgotten, yet so familiar. It made my hair stand up and my gut wrench.
It's Liam.
Brian whispered.
That's the song.
Brian never got to finish his sentence. The door slammed shut with such force we all jumped back. Sean laughed nervously.
Right, enough's enough. I'm getting out of here.
He stormed over to the door and pulled it open. Ash and Dennis were right behind him. I could already see the darkness for myself. The tide had turned, the air had changed, and we weren't alone anymore. Oh, God, Ash exclaimed, as Sean stood trembling, still holding the door handle. I ran over. Brian never moved. Directly across the landing, the door was wide open now. I could see into that room for the first time. Liam sat on the floor. A dim candle sat flickering in front of him, casting dancing shadows, distorting his face. "Hey, Danny," he whispered. I looked into his glowing, yellow, serpentine eyes and shivered. He slowly lifted his finger to his mouth. Tonight's story was Season 2, Part 2 of A Scotland Bell Tower Witch, featuring Vidith22 and As the Raven Dreams, written by the talented Reggaejunkiegee. If you enjoyed this story, please check out Reggaejunkegee's Reddit. His links will be in the description below. And if you enjoyed the voices of As the Raven Dreams and Vidith22, the links to their channel, as well as all of their social medias, will be in the description below. Please check all of them out and let them know PA sent you. But hey, did you know I have merch? Well, I do. And if you'd like to walk around representing my realm and gaining new travelers, the link to my merch store, as well as all my other social medias, will be in the description below. As always, I'd like to say a special thank you to all my lovely Patreons. 242 Reads, Rando Calrissian, Seraphine, the Midnight Bard, Creepy Clown Girl, Mina, Hair Raising Narratives, Spooky Booze, Scary Story Time, Lycan Trucker, and Pimp Demon. If you'd like to join these lovely travelers but light my fire, you can do so too by becoming a Patreon. Just remember, the support is always appreciated, but it is never expected. Please don't forget to like, comment, share, subscribe, and ding that bell if you're new for all future content, as it really helps push this video into the algorithm and helps the channel grow. But as always,
Once you step into my realm, there's no stepping out.